Okay. Hi, beautiful Heidi. Welcome here today on this gorgeous Monday. Really, really excited to have you here and to talk and to share more about these plant essences and codes that we've been working on, that you've been working on, and I've just been adding my part in at the end. So I would really like you to introduce yourself. What do you do? What's your passion, and a little bit about the plant essences and where they've come from.
Okay, big question.
Yeah.
I'm Heidi. Yeah, I've been on a long plant path with like herbalism and homeopathy and kind of grounded experiential work. And at some point along that path, I was a bit overwhelmed with the sheer amount of information, and I wanted to call it back to its roots, which is how I began with herbalism. Was in a very experiential, direct learning from the plants. And then I got to a point where I was like, I need to do that more. I want to have the wisdom from the plants, not just learning about them. And so I've been on a path of learning how to do that for the last probably 10, 15 years and developing that. And then, now I've been slowly teaching that. And so part of that process has been the flower codes just have started coming through, which I had no idea what they were at the beginning. Like the more I tuned in with plants, the more I got this message that I needed to work with my ancestors. And I had a bit of resistance to that. I was like, oh, that sounds boring. But when I did it, it was very, very key in the process, because they guided me onto actually some of the latent wisdom that we carry within us that's like been anciently forgotten. And from that, the beginning of the flower codes came, and it was just one plant to start with, and they are a pathway of, and there's one that's an opening. And so I worked with that for months, and then the next one came through. It's like I'd awakened it within me enough. So it's a lot of deep work with them, like working over time. And then I did the next one for a few months, and then the next one. And at some point along the journey so what I've gleaned from now is that there are 9 of these core flower codes, and they're a pathway of awakening. They're a pathway of bringing us to a new earth consciousness, what I call it, which is basically how we're meant to be. So it's our divine birthright of, being more, it's such a big thing to try and explain, but more about really being in harmony with all beings and working co-creatively, and sacred earth sort of vision. So and then it was probably a year or two after I'd started working with them that the first one was like, okay, I'm ready to be made now. And as I was making that, I got Eleni came in my vision of like, they need sound activation, and there it was. So and each of them has been made in a different way. Like they're quite clear. Like I work a lot in co-creation with the plant divas, so they're not made from my idea most of the time. Sometimes a bit of both, but they're usually made on certain times of the year when the plant said it has to be this day, which I think the first one was a winter solstice herb, so it was made on that. And they're a combination of like flower essences, spagyric medicines, which are super, any spagyric has had a lot of deep work done on it in order to make that medicine. So it's a long process. Most of them are made in circle, so in a group of people as well. So there's a lot of people working through that and do the plant. So they have a lot of depth and potency in them. That kind of, the spagyric process is, it evolves the plant in a way. So we're bringing it to a higher version of itself in the world, but we have to evolve in order to do that. And then we take the herb and it evolves us again. So it's a beautiful evolutionary process between the two. So they can, and some of them contain homeopathic potencies. So some of them, that's what they are required as well. So they're a blend. And then, so this is all blended in a certain time of the year and then handed over to Eleni, who does her magical. Yeah, so
sound and energy weaving, absolutely. And I really love the way you've described the process, because it is a co-creation, and it's not something that's done in isolation. It's something that's done as a group, like people coming together and working respectfully with the plant, who has so much wisdom to give. But it's like a circle, and it's not, it's not something that's me. I'm doing it all by myself. It's like we are working together, and we have to evolve ourselves in order to hold and create. And the plant as well, like what sometimes came through in the sounding was the plant wanted some not healing, but needed some sort of activation to reclaim itself from the place it's had in our history, to really work with us at its full potency. And I wanted to ask, why plants? I mean, I think I already know the answer, but why plants that are coming through to assist us in this pathway to awakening? What is it that they have that they can share with us?
yeah, that's a beautiful question. I mean, I think that there's probably everything's coming in to assist us, but I'm working with the plant, well, really flowers, like this feels like a flower pathway. So particularly, and they're about blossoming. So they're about coming to our, I don't know, to our blossom part of like,
Yeah.
and I feel like really aligns with what we're moving into in the age of, like, we are coming back to it doesn't look like it out there, but I think that we're actually slowly going to be stepping into a much more golden age and a blossoming. And so I think this is about it's not new, like we all have it within us. So it's forgotten, and it's just a process of remembering that and reawakening, reactivating those, this wisdom. And so it feels like it's about flowers. But plants in general, like if you look at the different systems, plants are the harmonizers between opposing forces. So they're much more gentle and subtle than if you work with animal remedies, there's a real dynamism to them. Like there's just a dynamic force. I mean, in homeopathy, you learn how to recognize mineral, plants, animals. So you can tell a plant, animal person just by the way they kind of portray themselves in the world. And again, like minerals or crystals, they work on a more of a structural level. So yeah, I think the plants are more these harmonizers between opposing forces. So they're really, and they're the heart. They relate to the heart realm. So we tune in to plants through the heart, because that's the same energy as the green of nature. And yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
Oh, absolutely. That was such a great answer. And I love the way that you, with your understanding and background in homeopathy, you can explain the difference between the different realms, because I think a lot of people don't know and aren't aware of the subtleties of the differences in each of these realms. Each one carries a different frequency and has a different purpose. And I think, plants I see as being a lot more neutral, and balanced. They can help us to be unbiased. It's like trees, the way that I think of like trees, they work with their enemies, or like the trees that are around them, they work with them, they allow in, they're not fighting or going against. It's very balanced and sort of neutral energy that I think that plants can bring. And I think that's really, would you say that's true?
Yeah, totally. And totally, if you think of it on a cellular level too, they're almost like the communicators between, like if you think of it like in cells, there's the minerals or the crystals or the mineral realm. It's like the actual, minerals. And then, but the plants are the cell communicator. They're the force that balances, make sure you have the right balance of minerals in your body. So yeah, they're kind of a bit more of an organizing force, I guess.
Yeah, amazing. Makes me want to learn more and more about plants, actually, because I love working with plants, but I don't actually know all that much about them. And I work with them in a general level, but not really in a specific level. And that's why it's actually been so amazing to work with you at the end of the process and really anchor in each one of these flower essences, because each one of them has just been so different and had so many, it's like a personality each one has a different personality that you can feel and that you can sense into and that you can work together with to help. Like they just want to help. They just want to help. Every time I've tuned into plants lately, they're like, we want to help you. We want to work together with you. Like, don't feel guilty or don't feel ashamed of what you've experienced with plants in the past, whether you've accidentally killed a house plant or chopped down a tree or whatever, or any of the things that we've unintentionally or when we've been unaware, things that we've accidentally or on purpose done to plants, they're not at that level. They're like, we want to work together and we love you regardless, and we've got so much to share with you. So it's been such a beautiful experience to work with you on these, Heidi.
Yeah, I think it was so amazing having, because you come in knowing nothing about any of it.
Yeah, that's right.
And then coming in and having this kind of, like, I don't tell you anything, I just hand it to you, and like at the end of your sound, like you just come in and with all this like confirming knowledge of like it's like, oh my God, she got it all in that. It's quite amazing how you just picked up all the keys, the essence of that because for me,
Thank you. Yeah, that's what we do. Do you know, that's what we learn. So we can tune into anything. We can tune into rocks, we can tune into plants, we can tune into all of the energies that are around us, and each one is communicating with us in its own way, if we learn how to listen. And I think you're really, really good at listening to plants and fairies and animals in that realm. And so I also wanted to ask, we spoke about before, is there a general sort of message that these flowers want us to know? Like, you may have covered it before already, but I'll say something afterwards. Ask you first.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're inviting us to remember ourselves as a whole, and to remember how the possibilities of how we can actually live in harmony. It does really relate to what we've just been saying of, we're living in this realm where things aren't often harmonious, especially now. There's a lot of polarization, but it's not our essential nature. It's just that there's so many layers of what we need to, so with the flower codes, that what I understand, so there's the core codes. There's 9 core codes, and they're really about remembering this ancient wisdom and this ancient way of being, which is new earth. It's sacred earth being, so living in harmony with everyone, like all beings. And then what happens and then there's then there's lots of healing herb codes, which are, and they're really common ones, like rosemary, sage, like calendula, like they're ones that we all need, like they're all around us because we need them a lot. Like everyone could be using them. And the healing herbs are about because we've strayed from this path of who we can be, like they can heal the wounding around that. So there's different herbs for different kind of I guess wounds, or to help us begin to heal those. So I think
different times in our life.
And so often when you're working with one of the core codes, if you've never felt that, like one of them is around well, let's come back to a simple one. One of them is around the postnatal phase of just like being held and being loved and having all of that gentle, which we know with research in midwifery that it impacts us for life. Like what happens in that time is essential for the way that we relate in the world, in our life, and it sets us up. So the core code for that will awaken that if we never had it. But what can also arise at that time is like the wounding of not having had it, and certain, like there can be different remedies that come in alongside that. So I guess they're wanting us to remember that it doesn't have to be hard, and it doesn't also have to be rough, like an initiatory even though I think the work with these codes is quite initiatory, they're also saying that you don't have to be in pain to grow and evolve. Like, you can actually do it in a gentle, loving way, which is the plant way. And so, but yeah, because we're kind of so far from that, often, yeah, it's up to us. A lot is up to us how we follow that pathway. If we're not listening, it's probably going to be rough. So, but if we're listening, like, it can be gentle growth and evolution. So yeah, I feel like as a collective, where there's still a lot in the birthing phase of just awakening this remembrance of what we can be. And then there's a whole pile of people working through sovereignty, which is one of the codes as well. And I think that's a massive one, because it comes back to our own responsibility and taking responsibility for everything in our lives and going through that. So yeah,
that's massive.
Yeah.
yeah. Each one of them on their own is a lot of work, and I think there's a lot of people who've probably been doing this work for a while and who could come up and who could work with the codes quite easily, but if even if they haven't, like, because the work's been done, they can come and they can start working with each of these core, like, foundations of what we need in order to become like a whole unified version of ourselves to contribute to this sacred new earth, because it's up to each one of us to take the responsibility and to do the inner work in order to co-create this beautiful reality that we're moving into. But that's such a difficult one sometimes to remember, is that we don't have to grow through pain and suffering. And I think that's a really beautiful message for the plants to come through, because sometimes we don't believe it. There's such a strong story in our collective that pain, you need to experience pain and suffering in order to grow. And like, that's such a big story, and we have to choose to believe something different. And like, if we make our individual choice and if we stick to it, then yeah, maybe we can actually listen. Then we can listen to the plants and say, okay, maybe you're right, and trusting them. It's trusting the messages that comes through too. Like, is there a core code to do with coming into sort of trust and self-esteem and confidence or anything like that? Is that part of the core?
Yeah, well, I guess the core are just kind of, one of them is, it's more like in your power. And
that's it, in your power. Oh, okay, all right, wonderful.
And that thing around, the gentle, like it's that thing around gentleness of plants, and we don't have to do things roughly, but they require subtlety. Like, so there is a certain level of sensitivity that you need to develop to tune into the plant realm. And I think that's the same as for us. Like, if we develop that sensitivity, we'll hear the messages that we're getting for ourselves, so that we can do this gentle path rather than
absolutely. I mean, it's the same with the fairy realm as well. Like, if you're tuning into the fae and the fairy realm, you need to have sensitivity. If you're tuning into any of the subtle realms, we need to learn that sensitivity, how to put, like, all the distractions of what we see with our eyes and what we hear with our ears, to tune into that sort of inner sensing realm where we can tune into the fairies, the plants, the rocks, the minerals, spirit, whatever it is that we're tuning into. Is that building that sensitivity and that trust in what it is that we're receiving. There is one plant that wants to come through and share a message today. Let me see. Yeah, so as a group, and then there's one that also wants to share. So as a group, they really just want to really highlight what Heidi's saying about being gentle with ourselves and being gentle with others. Like, a part of the gentleness comes in correcting other people when they're wrong. Like, we have such a strong story that in order to change somebody, we have to point out their errors and correct their problems. But that's actually a really harsh way of helping people to learn. The only way that other people can learn is by being gentle with them and by being the embodiment ourselves of what it is that we want them to learn. So to move away from, like the plants want us to know this, to move away from judging other people and correcting their errors and come back into ourselves and into our own gentleness and what it is that we want to be in the world and how we want to be. And if we see something in the other people that we don't like, just really bringing it back into ourselves and being gentle with ourselves and therefore being gentle with others. And that's the way that things are actually going to change in a meaningful way, coming from the heart. You know, like we might affect change by telling people they're wrong, but usually the change doesn't stick. It doesn't stay. It doesn't come from a heart-centered place. And so it can end up creating more chaos in the end, rather than the harmony that what we're really desiring, what we're really wanting is that harmony and that gentleness. And I mean, turning it back is, how would it feel if you receive gentleness from other people? Like when you accidentally do something wrong or intentionally, however it comes, like how would it feel for somebody else to treat you gently and to say, just to hold that space for you without judgment and without correcting your error. Same way, like as parents, if we want to, with children, you know, it's such a different energy to be in, rather than that, like, it's almost like attack when we correct other people for their errors. It's almost like an attack, even though it doesn't seem like it's a socially acceptable attack that we have gotten used to. So they just want to know gentleness and come back into ourselves first before others. Okay, and yeah, Rosemary, just, you know, like Rosemary is just the strongest one that has stuck with me since working with her, and she's just been with me all day today. I'm like, speak, me, I want to speak, me, I'm here. And you know, all right, so we're here, Rosemary, and what is it that you want to say? So don't be afraid of the past and of what we have been labeled as, because I am a direct example of that. So I have been mislabeled for centuries and misused for centuries, and people have a huge misunderstanding of what I'm capable of and what I'm here to bring. But that doesn't change my potency, and that doesn't change what I'm bringing. My effect is long and it's slow, and I'm coming into my full power and integration and union now as a combined being. I am not female, I'm not male, I am a union of all of the energies, and I bring that for you, whoever is listening, and whoever wants to tune in to me as a frequency. I can help you to find balance and union within yourself. So to give a specific example, rosemary has been used, I've been used as a herb for so many years, just for, you know, what do you think of when you think of me? You think of seasoning, you think of adding to food, you think of lamb or meat or something like that. Like there's been rosemary is not often seen as a powerful herb that can be used in many, many different ways. It's limited to the kitchen and the cooking and those sorts of things, which is also like it's a very like the feminine. The feminine has been used in that way for a long time. And at this point in our evolution as a species, you know, we're coming out of that into a much more balanced view about what it is to be a human, whether it's female, whether it's man. So the female have been awakening and the males are beginning to join in that, into that sacred union. So I just really want you to know that let go of the past. You know, the past does not have power over you, doesn't have power over us. No matter how much has been done in the past, it can all be changed and shifted and moved. And that's where we're going. That's where we're going, into that union. And call on me when you are feeling unbalanced within yourself, and you're seeking and you're craving more of that balance, more of that union within yourself. So I have completed my journey of union, and I'm here now as a whole essence code for you to call on. So that's what I'm also, you know, I didn't want to say this, but I just keep seeing a crown, like, so like the rosemary just, it's like it's crowned in its union, and it's not a queen crown, it's not a king crown, it's just a sovereignty crown as a whole sort of being. And we can rise into that regardless of what we've experienced to date. So yeah, that's Rosemary. That's Rosemary's message. Do you have anything to say about that, Heidi? Like, what does that awaken in you?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's beautiful. It's just totally her message. She's so she comes through as the divine feminine, healing the divine feminine. But what working with her and working with calendula, which is the divine masculine, what you understand is that there's no divine feminine if it hasn't integrated the masculine. So you can't have divine feminine on its own. It has to have the masculine within it. So it's like the yin, the yang dot in the yin, you know. So it, you know, that it is, you can't have just one. They have to be, and you see that with rosemary and even how it works. It's quite a warming, stimulating, which is the masculine, but then it's got this beautiful blue flower, which is super feminine, Mother Mary sort of energy, and it's a big emotion, like helps you move through emotion. So there's a huge, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's beautiful what you shared. I think it's ultimately, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah,
but you're exactly right. There's so many different different uses, and they're all sort of balancing. But maybe you can share a little bit about how else rosemary can be used. Like, well, what else can rosemary be used for?
The other thing came up for me with what you're saying is how hilarious that you're seeing this rosemary in cooking, which is true. That's how most people use it. So, but yeah, again, this refined to the women, divine feminine is just in the kitchen. Like,
yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
Negative implication.
Yeah. And it doesn't, and you know what, and in the end, it doesn't matter if we have been relegated to that in the past. What matters is right now, and what we're doing right now, what we're doing with that information, and not to blame the other side for it, like not to blame the masculine or what's happened, is to really let go of that sort of attacking of somebody else or blaming of another piece of us. It's really just another piece of us. And that, you know, the task for us now is to really come into that place of balance and love for everything, you know, and the journey that has brought us to here, you know, it was necessary. And now we can change the story and create something new.
Yeah.
Rosemary,
in the body, like I always try and find an embodiment of each of the herbs, and in the body, like, so it has this effect of toning the uterus but relaxing the other muscles. So it's good for tension and good for headaches.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good for everything. Like, but I mean, it's certain things. But like, even just that feeling of like when the feminine is toned, like the womb is like in its healthy balance, like not too tight, not too, just in a healthy tone, then the masculine muscles of doing can just relax. So there's there's so many layers that you can look at it. Like there's the physical layers and on the deep level, that's the same. It will move through the whole, every action of it. It's like this healthy feminine it's integrated the masculine. So the masculine is also holding it, but in a healthy way, not in an unhealthy way. So rosemary helps anything that's out of balance in that realm, like when you're working with it at a deep level. So yeah,
absolutely. I really love that you brought it back to embodiment, because that's an important part of all of this as well. It's, you know, trying to have these ideas and have these real mental constructs and go off into the spiritual planes, but we have to actually embody this into this vessel that we are in right now. And that's where real transformation comes. We can integrate that, when we can integrate all of these amazing spiritual ideas and essences and so forth, and then really embody them in the body. And that example that you gave is such a powerful example of integrating our feminine and our masculine within ourselves, you know, like, and how the plants can help us to do that. So I think that's a really important part, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because sometimes we forget about that. We want to just sort of dissociate and go off with all the fairies and the plants and the spirits and whatever, but until we anchor it into the 3D, then, you know, that's it's not actually complete. Like, the work is not actually complete. And I feel like that's a part of the sounding in the code that was one of the things that we're doing, is really like, so Heidi just gave me the bottle of the essences, and I just sounded to the bottle and to the actual essence, and it felt like it was just a clearing, an activating, and an anchoring of the essence of the flower into the physical realm, into the physical bottle, so that it can be used and worked with for other people on a physical realm, so it can be shared in that way, and it's become a lot more accessible, because, you know, like, in our bodies, we all feel our bodies, we don't all feel everything else that's going on. And so that was a really key point. It was a nice segue into what it was that I'm doing with it, because I don't think I spoke about that at all yet. But yeah. What's that?
Yeah, it's beautiful, because it was very clear to me that they needed to be handed over to you for their, like, sound.
Yeah. And that's, well, that's right. And that's what I mean. We can use sound, we can use whatever practices that we feel are you know, embody things for us. But I find that sound is just the reason that I've noticed that I work with sound. It's like a bridge between structure and form, and the formless and the feminine flow. Again, the feminine and the masculine structure, and the feminine sort of flow and expansiveness. And sound without words, because words give sound a structure, you know, that sound without words is just that bit closer to being formless, and to getting out of story about what we think and what we already know about things, and really sort of just providing that bridge and that anchoring from the spiritual realm into the physical, into our physical bodies, into what we see with our eyes. And so that's why I think working with sound and then working with these plants, that's why it works, you know, that bridge. We need to bridge our spiritual understanding with our physical bodies and what we're working with. So it's very, very exciting, very enjoyable too. It's a really enjoyable way to work. And just to let go of what our brains are telling us and what our stories are telling us from whatever we've been conditioned to know about each of these. That's why it was really nice to come in without any knowing of the plants and of what they are, because it's so easy to get stuck in what we already know about anything, and then that sort of permeates into what we're doing. And to just come in with a clean slate and say, all right, what's here? What are you bringing to me? What can you share? So that's the really beautiful part.
Yeah, I think it's really beautiful too, because for me, I've like done so much, so much with them, like over time, that yeah, like to have that like freshness of the of the new insight just kind of laid out really clearly. It's very beautiful.
And the confirmation too, and the confirmation that what you're receiving is like is actually, you know, it's corroborated when two people come together without knowing, and their stories match, then it's like, hey, yeah, this is real, this is the thing, this is actually real. Because sometimes it can feel like when you're working with the etheric realms, like it's like you can, this little like doubt inside can be like, oh, what if it's not real, what if it's not true? But then coming together in co-creation, like it's like, no, this is real, this is actually doing things, this is actually working, and this is real. Because I think even people watching, like, you think, oh, flower essences, oh, it's just a thing. Like, how can that actually do anything to change or to help me? Like, it's just a thing. But, you know, it is a thing. It is real. And and it's amazing. It's got so much, and you know, like it's just got so many. It just brings so much joy into our lives. I think working with these sorts of aspects of our aspects of ourselves and aspects of the world, and it brings a humility, and I think in a compassion and a gentleness. And so like those three things are really, I think, what they help to bring. And just to know that you're not alone, because plants are everywhere. Like everywhere you go, there are plants. If you're ever feeling lonely, you know, just, you know, connecting with the plants that are around you. And now we like these little bright lights going, hey, I'm here. Hi, yeah, I'm here. You're not alone. Like, you know, I'm here to help you and support you. So I just see them all, these little like bright lights everywhere.
Totally. They so want to help. They're so there, most of them.
Most of them, yeah. And also giving respect to the ones that don't want to connect. Yeah, just same like humans.
And most of them will come around if you show commitment and caring and respect. Like they're pretty much, they'll come around if you're totally just like a person. If you respect their wishes and like, but also show, you know, you're just gentle. Some of them have been so abused. We've abused them. We're still abusing them. Like, yeah. And
exactly. That's exactly right. And that's exactly what the plants were saying, before. Like, be gentle with yourself and be gentle with others, and that's the way to change. Like the tree will change, or the plant will change after you come into gentleness yourself and show like that patience and respect. And you know, like patience is another big one that comes up. Like trees and plants are so patient. Like they're just there. It's like time is not an issue for them. It's like we've got all the time in the world to grow at our own pace and to bloom when we're ready. And you know, like we're not going to rush that.
Yeah, and it's the same working with essences. I think when you work with essences, you're working on your own essence, and you're working at a really deep level. That's it will work immediately, but it works in the subtle realms first, and so the ripple effects of that might take a little while to get to the physical, and that might take longer to ripple. But you're working at a source level, so rather than at this external band-aid, I get rid of symptom level. So it's they're there, and you know, it can take people a little. It just depends on your own sensitivity how they'll work, whether you believe it or not. But like how much you notice it, and I think sometimes there's just that process of noting down what's going on. Then you really start to see, oh wow, actually a lot has changed in those 3 weeks that I've been using that. And we see I do this training around the flower codes, and in that it's really beautiful because most of that is direct connection and with the core codes. And it is amazing because, you know, all the themes start to come. I think that's one of the most exciting things about working with plants in circles, because you start, even if you don't know a plant, if you get a group together and you all start tuning in, these themes just get so clear. Like it's like you can't miss it. And I think when you're working with that essence level of a plant, I don't mean by taking it, I mean just trying to meet it at its essence, like just like meeting you at your essence rather than just the personality level. Like when you really get to know something, then it's a much more potent effect. I think it's a bit of a more, you're meeting someone or a plant at a vibrational level, so the ripple effects are powerful, like a bit like sound, I guess. It's like it affects things on a vibrational level, so things change, though we might not be sensitized to notice it for a while.
That's right, exactly. Like the same with the light as well, and with the sound. People will receive it, but they won't necessarily understand unless they're actually sensitively tuned in that something has shifted or something has changed. Same with the flowerances. They're like, oh, I didn't feel anything. But it's all up to where you're ready to take it, and you've got to be really aware. And the shifts, like, they are powerful, because at our core, at our essence, we're vibrational beings. And so when we meet the plants at their essence, like, and if we're coming from our essence, it's like you're getting right down to the core of who it is we are and affecting change at that level rather than just trying to heal it from a surface level. It's like, all right, we're going into the core and we're going to meet there and we're going to like ripple out. And it can take time for those ripple effects to ripple out through our subtle body and our physical body and then into our lives and into our relationships and so forth and things like that. But like when the change has been made at that deep level, like the change has been made, you know, that's you can't, you know, that's
and it's so beautiful. I mean, witnessing, that's one of the beauties of being like working with people in depth with certain plants over time. Like you really start to see people make big shifts and you're like, oh wow, this stuff works. Like people change and like their world changes around them, like one step at a time. But like, you know, we were like one of the second flower code is all around birth, and we work really deeply with the birth imprints, and that's so core to the way we live our life. So when that changes so much in when people kind of dive through that initiation, which is not an easy one, like the ripple effect in their lives is just I'm constantly kind of blown away and always kind of going, oh, it works, yay. Because I go into that. So yeah, it's great. It's really beautiful too.
Well, it is, and it can. I think that's a natural thing that all of us who work with these etheric essences in whatever way, like, because you can't see it in the physical world, and we're constantly bombarded with things happening in our physical world, seeing with our eyes, hearing with our ears, smelling with our nose, that we want to see changes, like we want to see the effects in this world. And we do, like after a while, if we're patient, it's just really nice to see that. It's really nice for other people to see that too, because it increases trust in the work they're doing. So absolutely, I love seeing it, although I keep getting reminded it's not necessary. It's a big lesson for me to not wait for evidence in the real world to trust, because I know myself that it works and you know yourself that it works, but still it is nice. All right, that's wonderful. We've been chatting for like 45 minutes. I didn't even realize the time is gone. So I think we will end it now. I'm so grateful for you being here, and I really love this chat. I love listening to you and talking to you about these things and connecting in with the plants and what they have to share. And if you're watching this and you want to know more about Heidi and what she's doing, it's Blooming Moon. Is that what it is?
Blooming Moon. Wildflowerwalker.com.
Wildflowerwalker.com. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was thinking of the Facebook, but yeah, wildflowerwalker.com. And she has these amazing courses that she runs where you can learn to tune in. Yeah. And also there's information about the flower essences and the codes on here. If you can't get enough of Heidi, like me. All right.
Thank you so much,
Heidi.
Such a pleasure and an honor to work with you always.